Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Should You Play, where I show you some spoiler-free gameplay and give you my thoughts after playing new games for a few hours, while also highlighting and checking out at least one of the PlayStation Plus games for each month. In this video I'm playing one of the January 2025 PlayStation Plus games, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, the DC Comics-inspired live-service action-adventure shooter which originally released in January 2024 to some incredibly mixed reviews. The Suicide Squad is one of my favorite groups within the DC Comics universe, alongside the Justice League Dark and the Bat Family. So when I heard that the team behind the Arkham games were going to be developing a Suicide Squad game, I was pretty excited. But then the game was delayed multiple times, bad bugs hit players on day one, and the general response to the game was fairly negative, so I ended up holding off on checking it out for myself. A year later, the game definitely has issues, but I don't think it's nearly as problematic as some claim it still is, so let's talk about it.
Let's get moving, Task Force H!
Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League takes place 5 years after the events of Arkham City and follows Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, and King Shark as they're forced into working under Amanda Waller.
Welcome to Task Force X.
After having bombs implanted in their necks, the four villains are sent to Metropolis to stop a corrupted Justice League, now under the control of Brainiac, while navigating their own distrust and conflicting personalities as a team.
Give me one reason why we should go out into that shit show.
The bombs, dumbass.
Morbid curiosity.
While the story does have its moments, the writing can be pretty hit or miss. Some of the humor lands just as intended, especially since the dynamics between the characters mostly works in the game's favor.
Explain yourself.
I mask my insecurities with drink and bad behavior. Oh.
But there are also times where some of the banter can come across as forced or injected into the conversation just for the sake of making a joke, which hurt the overall narrative as the balance between seriousness and humor never quite stuck its landing.
Cool.
Overlapping lines of dialogue can also cause you to have trouble absorbing some of the game's information, and there's some odd storytelling at the very start of the game where you're sent to Metropolis a week into the game's story to go through a tutorial, only to be sent back to the true beginning of the narrative where you're taught the same controls once again.
Metropolis. It's the little things that really change a city's vibe.
Kill the Justice League is a fairly open-world action-adventure shooter where you can play as any one of the four main characters. The game was designed as an online multiplayer experience, but you can also play offline or online with friends or random players. Though it is worth noting that now that the game isn't going to be supported anymore with additional content, the player base will likely be decreasing. And when I tried to find some random players to join up with, I ended up on the matchmaking screen for about 30 minutes before someone finally joined my squad. Regardless of whether you're playing online or offline though, Kill the Justice League gives you a city filled with enemies and destruction to play around in, which is the perfect place for a group like the Suicide Squad.
Just picture it. Harley Quinn kills the Justice League.
For the most part, you'll be following Amanda Waller or Rick Flagg's directions, completing objectives to rescue soldiers or bolster your strength against the Justice League and Brainiac, but you'll have the option to go on side missions as well, and both will allow you to earn weapons and experience, which will in turn let you level up and gain access to talents and a set of skill trees. The game does also have 4 seasons worth of expansions, as well as a battle pass and an in-game store where you can purchase new characters, outfits, emotes, and other cosmetic items. But if you've watched my review videos before, you already know how I feel about battle passes in games that aren't free to play, so I'll move on.
This is some bullshit.
Personally, the combat is where I think Kill the Justice League does some of its best work. You navigate your way around Metropolis using tech that your team steals from the Justice League, and combining your movement abilities with your combat abilities can result in some really fun gameplay that reminded me a bit of games like Just Cause or Saints Row. The game also encourages you to mix up melee and ranged combat, incentivized by the fact that shields don't recharge on their own, and can only be restored by performing melee attacks on stunned enemies.
Every second you spend hiding behind cover is wasting my time.
Additionally, the game offers a good variety of attack types, including some which can disrupt enemy behavior, and the ability to switch between the 4 main characters keeps the action feeling somewhat fresh.
You hit that like a bomb going off.
Despite the strong foundation though, the combat does have some notable drawbacks. Enemy variety is limited by the fact that, outside of bosses, they're all corrupted humans, and there isn't much difference between any of the fodder enemies. Sure, some are snipers, some have armor, and some are bulkier, but there's really not enough visual variety to keep it interesting after you've been playing for a while. And despite the variety of attack types, combat doesn't really require any strategic thinking, which makes the enemy encounters feel all the more repetitive. On a more positive note, Kill the Justice League's visuals are objectively good looking. The characters all have a great amount of expression in their faces, even with characters such as King Shark who don't have standard human facial features. And Rocksteady has always been great at creating rich, dynamic worlds.
She knows who we are.
The only complaint I have that's worth mentioning is that the shadows don't always look great, especially considering that lighting plays a large role in a lot of the cutscenes and makes them stand out more. But I don't think there was a single moment that stood out to me as looking bad, aside from some little details here and there. While I didn't experience any game-breaking issues, there were a handful of bugs that stood out to me. The one that happened the most was the AI companions not really knowing what to do when you're standing around listening to dialogue or waiting. So they'll start to freak out a little and can be quite distracting while they move back and forth on your screen. The biggest issue I had, though, was being completely forced out of my offline session after it lost connection to the game servers, as well as it taking about 10 minutes to reconnect so I could start playing again. Granted, it only happened to me once, but I'd say that's a pretty big issue considering I wasn't utilizing any online features at the time.
Plunged Gotham into a waking nightmare.
Ultimately, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a game that promises a lot, but falls short of expectations. I think that most people would agree that making this a paid live service title was a mistake that hurt the game in the long run, and the decision to end support a year after the game's release leaves it feeling incomplete.
Wow, you guys bombed harder than Eddie Nigma's stand-up set in Arkham.
While the main cast are fun to watch and the gameplay itself can be enjoyable, if not repetitive, the lack of fresh updates will likely cause a drop in player engagement, directly affecting the multiplayer aspects, and with everything else being taken into consideration, it makes it hard for me to recommend purchasing the game with it still being full price at most retailers. However, if you have a PlayStation Plus subscription, it's worth downloading the game and coming to your own conclusions, because it'll cost you nothing.
It's your lucky day.
As always though, this is just my opinion. Whether Amanda Waller has just given you your mission brief, or you've already started exploring Metropolis with the Suicide Squad, let me know in the comments what you think of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League.
So, who's staying to play hero?
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Always bet on Boomerang.